Welcome back to Intuition on Tap, your safe space for intuitive insight, grounded spirituality, and soul led living. I'm your host, Heidi Jane, and I'm so honored to be with you here today. This episode is a big warm hug and a truth bomb all at once. Because if you're listening to this, there's a very good chance you've asked yourself at some point, am I just overly sensitive, or is something deeper going on? So, spoiler alert, you might just be an empath, and it's not a flaw, it's a gift, but only if you know how to work with it. I do remember a time when I couldn't even walk through a shopping center without feeling completely overstimulated. Everyone else's energy felt like it was crawling all over me. I'd leave exhausted, even if I hadn't spoken to anyone. And back then, I didn't really understand what was going on because I didn't know I was an empath. I just thought I was weird and definitely different. And honestly, I'd known this my whole life, but I didn't have the framing, I didn't have the words, and I didn't have the understanding about what that actually meant. So, if that does sound like you, please stay with me because today I want to help you understand what's really going on for you beneath the surface. So, let's firstly look at what is an empath really? So, being an empath isn't just about being super sensitive or highly sensitive. It means that you actually absorb the energy, the emotions, and sometimes even the physical sensations of other people. And you do this consciously or not. You feel what's unspoken in your body. You know when something's off, even if no one else does. And I don't know if you're like me, but I'm always the one that kind of flags when something doesn't feel right. And oftentimes I have people around me saying, "Oh no, that person's really nice," or "Oh no, this situation is going to go really well." And in the past, I used to question my own internal guidance system. I knew that something was off. I knew that something maybe wasn't quite right with that person. But before I knew what was going on, I would allow other people to influence my inner knowing. So I know that a lot of empaths and certainly highly sensitive people have experienced the same thing. They haven't yet learnt to trust themselves, and that can be a real tricky space to be in long term. Because what also happens is you carry a lot more than just your own emotional load. You tend to take on the emotional load and do the emotional work of people around you. But here's the thing. So if you don't realize you're doing it, and you don't have the tools to manage it, it can lead to chronic overwhelm, anxiety, burnout, health conditions, and that bone deep exhaustion that you can't quite explain. So let's look at 4 signs that you might be an empath rather than just being burnt out. Let's walk through some of the biggest signs. And these are the clues that I wish someone had definitely given me earlier in my life. It would have made things so much easier. Because as I've explained to a lot of people before when I'm doing teaching or doing presentations, I grew up in a family of non-empaths. So, which is often the case for a lot of us empaths. We tend to choose to be in families who don't understand us and don't necessarily relate to us, which then compounds this feeling of being weird, different, off, like there's something not quite right with us. So I want you just to think to yourself and maybe do a bit of journaling about that, and whether you think that that has impacted, your family of origin or the family that you grew up in, whether that has impacted your ability to to stand firmly in your own energy field and to stand firmly in your own identity. So let's look at these signs, these 4 signs. So, number 1, you feel people's moods before they say a word. So, what this means is, and what this looks like, is you walk into a room and instantly you know what's going on in that room emotionally. So, your body, like a compass, reads that room like a radar. And even if people deny that nothing's been going on in that space, you can feel it in your body. Number 2, crowds, conflict, or loud environments drain you. So you might love people, and I certainly do. I'm quite extroverted, and I'm definitely a people person. But like me, you may also need that solitude, almost like oxygen. You need your downtime, particularly if you've spent a lot of time in very chaotic or energy filled environments. You're also more likely to be sensitive to sound, to light, and to chaotic environments than most other people. I've often described, loud, unexpected noises when I hear them close to me or near me. It's almost like it hurts me physically. Like it's almost like an auric shock, like I can feel it physically in my head and in my body. So that could be like somebody clapping loudly or sneezing or somebody dropping something, so it actually triggers, my nervous system. So it'll be interesting in your own reflection whether that also happens to you. And definitely lights. I never turn on overhead lights in my house ever, ever. I've got, layered lighting with soft, warm lamps. And if I go outside and it's not raining or cloudy, I always have sunglasses on because I've learned how to manage my heightened sensitivities out in the real world and within my own home. So just have a think about how you can, support yourself with that too. So, number 3, people naturally offload their emotions onto you. So, strangers tell you their life story. You're just standing in line at the checkout, at the supermarket, minding your own business. And next thing you know, the person beside you is going to start telling you about how terrible their ex-husband is treating you or how terrible their boss was today. And you just want to buy some milk and get home. So if you've ever had this happen, this could be a good indication for you. Another one is that friends tend to cry in your presence or they unload on you. They feel like you're the go-to with people or friends who are in crisis or in drama. And one of the reasons that this can be is because you hold space so well for others. Now, the thing that you need to be aware and conscious of is that maybe you hold space too well and that you need to start creating some boundaries about doing the emotional labor and taking the emotional and psychological load from the people in your lives. So, number 4, you often feel exhausted for no logical reason. So, you slept well, you ate well, you did your yoga, you went for a walk, you did nothing particularly strenuous or outside of your normal routine, but you're energetically wiped out. So that's a good indication that you have an empathic leak. It can also be an indication that you're tuning into the collective consciousness. So when there's really crazy, chaotic stuff going on in the world, that can definitely negatively impact the way that you manage your own energy field. So what I mean by that is, like I said, you've slept well, you've ate well, everything's going okay, but you just feel like you are having the life force drained out of you. It can be what's going on, again, on that collective consciousness or conscious and on the global scale. So, if any and all of these sound familiar, then my love, you are likely an empath. Congratulations. This does not mean that you're too sensitive, you're not dramatic, and you're not weak. You're just tuned in, highly tuned in. One of my missions in life is to really turn the narrative around about being highly sensitive and the perception that it's somehow weak to be sensitive or to be highly empathic. Um, it's not. We have been, I believe, programmed to feel like our sensitivity is somehow weak. And I feel in a way that that's because it amplifies other people's lack of empathy or other people's lack of compassion. And we are like these big, huge, sensitive mirrors walking around, reflecting back other people's shadow to them. And generally speaking, people don't like to see their own shadow. So that's just something that you can like just have a little think about after you've listened to this podcast and whether you find that you easily trigger other people. I'm going to do some more on this in a future episode. So do make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that out. But it's a really interesting concept, the way that empaths tend to trigger other people's shadow. So let's look at how we can start protecting your energy. Now, before we go here, I did also want to say that I don't really buy into this whole, we have to be afraid. There's something to, fear. We need to protect ourselves. We need to call the angels and, wrap ourselves in white light. That's not really my thing at all. I believe that we as human beings were born with the ability to be able to protect ourselves with our own energy field. And particularly as an empath, we came with the tools already within us. It's like we've got our toolkit. We just have to understand how to access that toolkit. All right. So it's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be worried about. You don't have to become a recluse and lock yourself away or anything like that. However, good energetic hygiene is super important if you want to function in the world. So let's have a look at just some really simple techniques that you can use every day. So, number one, practice energetic separation. So, whenever you've come across, you've been out in a crowd, you've come across somebody who's going through something, say aloud or in your mind, I return what isn't mine with love to the source of its creation. So, why I add that to the source of its creation? Because potentially you don't even know where that energy, that thought form, that emotion came from. So, it may have attached itself to your friend who then it's attached itself to you, right? So you don't want to send it back to your friend because, you don't really even know if it originated from your friend. So this is kind of like a catch-all. If you say return it to the source of its creation, then it's going to go back to where it belongs. Make sense? Great. And at the same time, visualize an energetic barrier around your body, but emanating from your heart center. Now, those of you who have worked with me before or who have read some of my books or done some of my courses, you would know the Taurus field activation that I take people through. But just imagine you've got like coming out of your heart, it's your own life force, your own energy, which does not deplete, and it is protecting your auric field or your bioenergy field just like a barrier. Okay. Just think of it like you're ring fencing or you're putting up a boundary, however you want to visualize that. Um, that's what I would suggest you do. But this energy, your energy is yours, right? Full stop. You are not beholden to anyone. You do not have to take on board or carry anybody's energetic garbage, trash, any of that. That's not what you're here to do. Okay. So you do not have to put up with negativity or sacrifice yourself to make anyone else feel better. Number 2, daily grounding ritual. Even 3 to 5 minutes every day will start to make a huge difference for you in your life. So things like bare feet on the earth, standing tall, breathing down into your belly. You'll stabilize your own frequency and you can start to imagine releasing anything that doesn't belong to you back down into the earth. Right. So even like I said, 3 minutes a day. And you can do this while you're lying in your bed at night before you go to sleep as well. And another really just simple thing that you can do is have a shower before you go to bed. Just wash away all of that stuff that has magnetized to you during the day, during, your time out and about doing work, whatever that is that you do, hanging out with people, children, husbands, wives, partners. You don't want to take that into your sleep time. So grounding and having a shower before you go to bed. Super simple, super easy, very effective. Number 3, create empath buffer time. All right. So, what that means is I don't want you to rush from one emotional interaction to the next. Now, I do understand that a lot of empaths tend to be in caregiving roles because they are very good, as I said, at holding space for people. They tend to sometimes or often be in client-based businesses. So I understand that there are some times when that is not possible. So this is when I would get you to do that 3-minute grounding ritual, but in between those clients, for example, if you're seeing a lot of people. But try not to rush from one emotional interaction to the next. Give yourself time, especially to reset after social encounters. All right. Even if it's just a few minutes of quiet, just close your eyes, breathe into your belly, feel your body, center yourself, and then go on to your next interaction. And last but not least is journal the difference between mine and not mine. Ask yourself, is this emotion mine? Does it belong to me? Or did I absorb it from someone else? It can be really helpful and useful to do some free writing around this. So, not really kind of trying to get it right, but just writing whatever comes when you ask yourself. And it can be really impactful and a real breakthrough when you start to realize just how much energy you're picking up. All right. Now, one of the really important things that I also want you to remember, and I've kind of touched on this earlier today, but that your empathy is a gift, but that it has to have boundaries because this world, I don't know if you've looked around you, but this world needs more heart-led human beings. But you don't have to carry it all. Like I said to you, you're not here to sacrifice yourself on behalf of the rest of us, okay? It's got to be symbiotic, this relationship an empath has with the outer world and also with their inner world. You get to care without collapsing under the weight of everyone else's pain. You get to honor your sensitivity as sacred. There is a reason that you are here on this planet at this time. And I really want you to feel into that and remember that you are so important and that you matter and that you have not come here to constantly and consistently suffer, but that you can learn to understand and to work with your sensitivities, your uniqueness, and then find them and kind of like turn them into your superpower. So if that's something that resonates with you, please do reach out to me. I'm here to help. If this episode has sparked something in you, maybe a recognition, a sigh of relief, or even a few tears, please know that you're not alone. You're exactly who you're meant to be. And in next week's episode, what we're going to explore is the difference between feeling deeply and becoming emotionally overwhelmed, plus a little soul science behind the term or the ability called clairsentience, which is technically translated as clear feeling. But until then, I invite you to take care of your energy, to let your sensitivity guide you and not bury you. And remember, you're intuitive, you're sovereign, and your empathy is your magic. So thank you so much for tuning in to Intuition on Tap. If you love this episode, please share it with a fellow empath or soul seeker. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, or leave a review, because your words help this message reach those who need it most. Until next time, stay intuitive, stay grounded, and stay authentically you.